Good morning. Welcome to Investigator News, and I'm your host, Ellie. And Mary's usually our moderator, and she's not in quite yet. But do you know how the I'm really feel about the Constitution? And um, I was listening to Mark Levin, and he really put it right out there with this January 6th nonsense. And the Constitution is what the authority granted by the Constitution to Congress. And why does it matter? Congress doesn't have the power to do whatever it wants to. Very specific. We have in Article 1 that there's a long list of powers, and it's the longest article in the Constitution of Congress power, and it's very specific. They can raise taxes, borrow money, regulate commerce, establish a uniform rule of naturalization, coin money. It's a long list. You could take a look at it, but particular Section 8 of Article 1. You could study it and you will not find the power to what? Conduct a criminal investigation because it violates the separation of powers. Congress is made up of politicians, some whom are reprobates, some who are, of course, the statesmen. But Congress was never set up to conduct a criminal investigation of any sort or criminal investigation. And that is a part of the Justice Department's job, or U.S. Attorney's effort to target an individual, a group, or individuals beyond this outrageous makeup of January 6th. The entire enterprise of January 6th committee is very unconstitutional. Now, that being very troubling, there's not a single judge in Washington, D.C., not one who has reached out to that conclusion. And yet, this goes to the heart of our constitutional construct. You can't have Joe Biden making legislation by executive orders just by claiming national emergencies. You cannot have Congress investigating really not for legislative purposes, but criminal purposes, and set up the individuals and violate the Bill of Rights. You cannot, of the courts, legislate and execute. The whole thing becomes a mess. And that's exactly what is left in this country. It's exactly what Nancy Pelosi wants. And they do not believe in our constitutional construct and three separate branches, equal branches balancing the challenges of each other, each fighting for their own turf, and so forth. And they want to control all and that's why they want to destroy the Supreme Court and pack it with like minded um, colleagues that show that they control this massive bureaucracy. And that's not even present in the Constitution. That's why when they're in office, they use executive orders like somebody handing out legislation. And that's why they use Congress when the Democrats control the House or the Senate, particularly the House, as a criminal investigated body. And that's exactly what's taking place. This is really appalling if we intend to keep the republic. And this needs to be called out of all legal analysis on all channels as they sit there and they play the game. Former federal prosecutors, professors, former defense counselor, former they get into the weeds about the hearing. And what we did learn with this hearing is nothing. This hearing is illegitimate according to the Constitution. And the hearing is not only illegitimate because of all of the reasons I've talked about, but the past lack of opposition. And not only that, exculpatory evidence. There is no cross examining and on and on. But because Congress isn't supposed to be doing this, all of these interviews that have been taking place have been compelled by the committee. This is a one sided committee, and all the transcripts are eventually going to be turned over to the United States Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office to be used against these individuals. And so that's what's we see going on. They're bringing like Steve Bannon in. And of course, he fought him and really didn't disclose much. And where's he go? He's going to jail. And he'll be charged through the Department of Justice. And this is what they do. They get their people to get in there and say things, but they also call in those from the opposite side. They don't allow cross examination. And then they use uh, their statements against them in the Attorney General's office. Now, these interviews would not be taking place, or it'd be quite different scenario if an ongoing criminal investigation of the U.S. Attorney's Office asked these individuals to provide depositions on um, basically the word would be no, you don't do that. They would tell them no unless they could have some kind of deal, or that's going to be a deal that could be thrown out the window, or they can use their own attorneys to be able to defend themselves. When they're called up with this January 6th committee, they're usually not allowed lawyers. And this is also a violation of our Constitution to be able to have a right to defend yourself. The latest eighth hearing on prime time, um, the media just salivated and slobbered all over themselves. What a joke. And they tried to humiliate Senator Hawley. And it's really not about January 6th. None of this is. It's Nancy Pelosi um, immunizing the committee and the committee members and those that would be effective in the next presidential impeachment. Um, and whoever she appoints, she has to have approved. So you can look at this article, and there is no such authority, none to Congress of the United States. So everything that they're doing and everything that they've been doing openly and affirmatively is criminal nature. It is a violation of the separation of the powers. Separation powers go back to the Montesquieu. You could see the Federalist Papers. The framers of the Constitution mentioned the Montesquieu. So when you get these phony Republicans like King Zinger and Cheney are going on waving the Constitution around, well, they're not waving our Constitution. Perhaps it's maybe a 1934 Soviet Union Constitution, but it ain't ours. Now let's get to these hearings for a minute. Exactly is going on. They want to get into the 187 minutes before Donald Trump issued a video. And they're having a grand old time at the hearing, and they're laughing it up, and they're making fun of him, and they're making fun of witnesses. We're doing what they thought that what they were doing was so cool, trying to embarrass a former president, trying to embarrass Senator Hawley, and so forth. I can imagine every one of these on the committee, if we could have access to their iPhones, their texts, their emails, their documents, their staff, their family members, I'm sure we'd find sleaze all over the place. And because they aren't exactly Daniel Webster, most of them are exactly Thomas Jefferson. Most of them are not exactly Mr. Smith Goes Washington either. So what we have heard so far on the eighth hearing um, is nothing, nothing, nothing. We already know what they've already put forth, and they're just at this point repeating themselves. And there's a little things here and there, not exactly correct in these hearings. They have not even confirmed a lot of what they have been saying. If you were to put them through a fact checker, it would come up wrong, wrong, lie, lie, false, false. And, Donald Trump had no direct role whatsoever in January 6th violence. And inside the Capitol building, none whatsoever to do with any of it. And we know that because they haven't presented anything. They have videos, they have text, they have graphics, they had emails, they've had documents, they've had witnesses. Do you remember one sentence where Donald Trump directed or ordered or encouraged a violent attack? Not an innuendo, not an opinion. not an interference, but actually an actual fact. They haven't found anything because there isn't anything there. Nothing happened there. Um, Despite of 1,000 witnesses, excluding Nancy Pelosi, of course. Despite God knows how many months of investigating, and they have found nothing, zero. And it's quite remarkable how they talk about this 187 minutes until the president issued a video. Well, we're leading an insurrection, ladies and gentlemen, they say. The video wouldn't have been the video that he released if it basically telling supporters and others to stand down to cut out the 187 minutes. That's 3 hours and 9 minutes. Big deal. You have members of this committee who still have not issued statements condemning the plot to assassinate the Associate Justice to the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh. A lot longer than 187 minutes, I'd say. If you were members of this committee who were cheering on Black Lives Matter, as they were, and they were writing, they were maiming, they were burning, and of course, the media just rubbed their hands, licked their lips, and enjoyed every moment of it. And even killing, remember? And there's more than 187 minutes. I think there were like 2 years or more. So let's not play games with this stuff. If Donald Trump were seriously interested in an insurrection, he would have issued a video. His video wouldn't have said for everyone to go peacefully. His video would have called to arms. It's leading an insurrection. He would have called everyone who could hear his voice to come to the Capitol armed. That's a real insurrection. And to take over the Capitol building. They would have called the United States military, whether or not they would respond or come to the Capitol building, and maybe even arrest the vice president. But none of that happened. And the arrest of other official members of Congress and to take over the Capitol itself. He didn't do any of those things. And a matter of fact, he didn't do the things people told him that he might have wanted to do, but he didn't. What am I talking about? About sending military to get voting machines. Someone suggested. He didn't do it. He didn't send out the Department of Homeland Security to get drop boxes, as some suggested. He didn't fire the acting attorney general, nor acting deputy attorney general, as some suggested. To appoint a special counsel, as some had suggested. He did none of it. He didn't do any of what would lead to an actual legal insurrection. We would be holding hearings right now if he had done so. We would get a disgruntled former administration employees. That would never happen before. We get people giving their opinions and their inferences and one-sided to this committee and the power to do whatever it wants. They have no fingerprints. They have no DNA, nothing of Donald Trump's on January 6th violence, but they keep talking about this insurrection. And almost like Russia, 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 but it's insurrection, insurrection, insurrection. What are they talking about? Well, I'll tell you, they're talking about the 14th Amendment. This committee is basically the point of spear, front operation for the Attorney General of the United States and the United States Attorney, both of whom are politically partisan and corrupt. Doing what the media are doing is also repugnant to our republic. This is the cost of what they want to do is the cost of freedom in our lives. So crazy. Good morning to William and Susan and Sherry. Basically, it is unconstitutional what they have done. But it's going to take the Republicans to step in when they take over power of Congress and Senate to be able to stop this. And they can also flip it back around to where they can use the Constitution against these individuals like Nancy Pelosi to say that this was an illegal abuse of power. Um, so that's what Mark Levin was heading towards. Is Article 1 states there's many things that they can do, constitutional wise, but there's a lot of stuff they can't do, and they've gone beyond the powers of Congress to do this January 6th insurrection, and also with the Constitution and articles, and even the Bill of Rights, even go into what an insurrection actually is. And what they're claiming is not an insurrection. It would have to be like what we see down in Venezuela, where the protest, or even Sri Lanka and other countries that are swarming in, and they do their protest, and then they swarm in and they take over and they chase the president out and their vice president. That's a true insurrection, not this. Can you believe that they even threw a 69, I think a 69-year-old woman to the ground? The police did, Capitol Police, and nothing was ever done about it. Um, but it was not an insurrection. They didn't go in, they didn't try to take over, they didn't pursue and hunt down Congress or Senate that was in the building. They were just looking around doing little selfies. And then they left. They filed in, they walked around, and they went out another door. This is something that's not being shown with this January 6th committee. Now, Biden is going to meet with Xi Jinping, and now the U.S. president is likely to speak with Chinese counterpart this week, and it's going to be a telephone conversation. And would it come in the backdrop of worsening relations between the two global superpowers over several issues that include Taiwan, Ukraine, and technology sector? The president that will speak with Joe Biden this week. My expectation is that it's basically there's going to be no surprising remarks. Biden remarks came with the meeting with the tech CEOs and labor leaders aimed at discussing legislation to address global microchip shortages. And that's what we're looking at. Is it's not really a meeting about Taiwan. It's more of global microchip shortages, and is currently isolated himself at the White House while he's still recovering from a sickness. But the chip shortage has gone on and has worsened. And you basically, China has 90 lockdowns, and it's is hitting the United States industries. And for its own production, for its own goods like cars and smartphones, and pushing inflation even higher. So they have let go quite a few of their workers, and then they're keeping the chips for themselves and their allies. And according to what they're telling the United States, that there's a chip shortage. So really all they got to do is they need to let up on their lockdowns so they could put these people back to work. But I think this is a strategic move by China. We've seen the chips decline almost 40% of the global production. Not only that, but it's even knocked the production. If you want to look at it, actually what they're producing, it's about 12% of what they could be doing. So out of 100%, they're only doing about 12% of these microchips. And at the same time, we watch China go from 2% to 16% with the goal that they have reached to produce self-sufficiency with their computer chips. And it's no wonder China is watching this bill so closely. The United States semiconductor production, a new 4-year 25% tax credit to encourage companies to build the United States semiconductor plants. While the tax credit is estimated to be about 24% of US billion dollars that's coming at this time, the United States is getting threats from China over the White House um, decision to try to make these semiconductors or these microchips on their own. They say that uh, it will infringe on China's business, and they would also need Taiwan to um, be able to make the chips for them, for us, for the United States. And so what it does is we need Taiwan to make it for us, and then we can put a plant in and start getting our own built up if this is what the Biden plan wants. But as it looks, no, they don't. They want to buy them from China and they want to buy them from Taiwan. There's no plans, I've looked, to see that they're going to build any plants that's going to be making microchips. So meanwhile, Pelosi is not confirmed yet, but said last week it was important for us to show support for Taiwan. Now, Zhou Lijian, China's foreign minister, said they have repeatedly opposed to the speaker in Taiwan. This is abnormal. Usually the Speaker of the House does not come. We don't mind the Biden administration, but for just a Speaker of Congress, they are fully prepared to take action if Pelosi should show up in Taiwan, and that the United States would be responsible if actions are taken. They did, in order to show their strength against Pelosi, the military mobilized routine defense exercises on Monday. The drill with concerns over the forceful Chinese response to Pelosi's visit. And the police directed residents and passengers to shelters when a siren went off shortly after lunchtime. So they are practicing and doing drills for Nancy Pelosi just being there. So my thing on this is I'm hearing so many saying for her to go, her to go, her to go. No, it's not her place right now. If China doesn't want her there, our best strategic move would be not to send her yet. Let's let China cool off. Let's let Biden and Jinping decide the microchip thing. We don't need Nancy Pelosi over there in Taiwan stirring up China. And she knows she's doing this, and she's still planning on the visit. Nord Stream 1 is the top focus this morning. Russia energy giant gas has said it will once again drastically cut gas supplies to the EU and other countries through its main pipeline, and not to stream one, and maintenance work and that has to be done. And this comes as fears of an acute gas crunch continues to grip Europe. And in its official statement, it said it was halting operations of one of the last two operating turbines in Nord Stream 1 pipeline due to some technical reasons. And the gas supplies will be halted from Wednesday until it will cut the gas diversities to 33 million cubic meters a day. A full capacity of the pipeline is more than 160 million cubic meters. So what they were saying this quite a few days ago, and this was Putin saying it to Zelensky also, and they slammed Russia for these abrupt gas cuts. But isn't that what they're doing here? Isn't that the Green New Deal? And this is what Putin is putting forward also. He's saying, you guys are cutting it for the Green Deal. You're cutting it everywhere. But when he goes to cut his gas, then it's wrong. And he said he will continue. He will not continue gas supplies to the European countries. And he's basically obligated to do so for Russia. And so it looks as of this morning that they were going to go ahead and cut it to the 33 million cubic meters a day. And Russia said it can justify the suspension of supplies. Um, and what it does is it does gas that pumps Russia to Germany has been running well below its capacity for weeks now, and completely shut down maintenance period after this month. Although the supply was then resumed after a break, then suddenly halted again, has sparked fears that Russia might be planning to close crucial pipeline completely. And it's up to Russia's decision to do so. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Zelensky has slammed Russia for this and said that they have opened a gas warfare against Europe. Um, See, my thing with that, folks, is um, like Putin said, if the Green New Deal, if we cut all of ours and we cut off um, our oil and our gas here and even the coal, why can't Putin do it then? Well, wait a minute, because it's going to Europe, it's going to Germany. See that there's a big difference. Even I believe it was either Finland or Sweden that is changing clean coal and clean gas now that it's clean to a green deal resource. They're trying to flip it and change it so they could still use it, it's because they changed the name or how they put it out there to the world that it'll be overlooked by Klaus Schwab and the World Economic System. So, um, the other thing that's going on is we have got a bunch of spies over here. Um, um, and it's not just spies. These are um, uh, highly trained mercenaries. And what they're doing is China has been sending them over. We're training them. And now they're going to have them hired out all over the world as mercenaries for different countries that need uh, these type of mercenaries that can get control of their countries or protesters or whatever the needs are. And we have been training them for years. And now China has stated openly that yes, the United States have trained these guys, and now they can move them and place them wherever they want. And it will help them to overthrow some presidents in third world countries. Um, so, uh, this is something that we really do need to be looking into because we do not need um, mercenaries. Get this, they're not even going to take responsibility if they go and kill somebody because they were trained by the United States and they're trying to push it so that the CIA is responsible for these guys. So China's very sneaky. China's very strategic in how they move their military guys around. And that's what these are. These are military members that have now been trained to be fierce fighters. Kind of like um, Blackwater, some of them mercenaries that I've told you about in my corruption files. So that's what we're seeing is China is now going to have their own mercenaries that can be hired in different countries to help them overtake governments. If you guys remember Goodfellas or Law and Order actor, Paul Sorvino, who starred in Goodfellas and Law and Order, he died at the age of 83 as of yesterday. And of course, it'll be hearts broken. And because he has been a part of Law and Order and other detective type shows and movies for a very long time. And so prayers to his family. Um, America, according to the Pentagon and Department of Defense, America is unprepared for biological chemical warfare, according to Senator and top generals. Um, They need to make sure that we're not securing um, just the food shortages and what we could prep for food. But now they said they're going to have to take a new look at us humans, that we have no way or even prepared for the threat of chemical or biological warfare, especially if it relates to the food supply. Um, Army General Clark, the commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command, said that Russia has demonstrated a willingness to use chemical weapons against political opponents as far away as London and the United States, and needs prepared for that warfare to expand one day. Now, I'm going to let you know that they accused Russia of doing this early on during the first part of the end of February, pretty much, into March, when they were saying that Putin was going to use chemical or biological warfare. Come to find out, Putin really didn't have the chemical and the biological like we thought. It was more Ukraine had it. I'm going to wait and see on this because I can't see Putin using that type of strategy for this war. And as we go into the future, we have to be prepared eventually. I don't think we talk about as much as we should. And to duck and cover isn't going to work anymore, not when it's chemicals. Um, and they said we need to be more attention, and we need to pay attention to the the vulnerability of our food that we are prepping, to make sure they're sealed. Um, and if we look at the food security, what do we do with biological weapons that have directed our animal or agriculture sectors? And this is what Ernst asked over the weekend. And not only that, but what about avian influenza, African swine fever? All these things have circulated around the globe. What about the new smallpox? That we don't have anything to fight it. Or now we're seeing polio. Uh, so we are looking at a new wave of warfare if they want to go chemicals or biological. I personally believe that they won't do it. Um, but they did. I liked how they said, "Oh, the United States isn't prepared for this." Well, okay. Well, don't tell me that we're not prepared, and then go into a spiel about Putin is the bad guy. Putin's going to do it. No, no, no. How about a plan for the United States? How about a plan for the U.S. people in case it happens? We don't have underground bunkers like we used to. We don't have the safe underground bunkers that other countries have. And it's something that we should have been working on under the infrastructure since the 70s. Um, okay, Biden being stupid again. The Biden administration is reportedly attempting to issue temporary identification cards to illegal migrants who are awaiting a final decision on their immigration cases. Two government sources familiar with the situation. The exact details are unclear, but ID cards would apparently be given to the migrants who are not in the detention centers, but illegally cross the border and U.S. border. They might be able to get a card. Um, this could be used on smartphones that are be given illegal to the migrants by our administration. The cards may even be used to access certain state benefit programs. Um, so what we have here is they're just going to give them ID cards, and I think it's about the whole November thing. They got to be able to get these extra in. But what we're finding out with the people coming over the border, they're starting to hear that we're a socialist country and what our government has been doing to us. And they're get this the they say the Spanish culture is getting very upset. Those coming from South America, even Mexico, are now very upset that they're walking into something worse. than what they just came from and they're seeking asylum for. Are they going to get all the free stuff? It might happen for another year or two, but once we start putting things in place again under a Republican plan, uh, then you'll see that the migrants won't get their ID cards like they thought, or even um, getting free social service programs is another thing that they want to give them, food stamps and medical and um, for the kids to be able to get into the schools here. So as we get closer to November, we'll see more of what the Republican plan is, what they're going to do for these illegals and these ID cards. But Biden wants to give it to them. So New York Times sinks its teeth into um, promoting cannibalism. Now, I didn't read this one, so I'm going to be really surprised on this. And the polls continually show that no longer trust the mainstream media. It could be stories like um, cannibalism has a time and a place. And this was the New York Times wrote Saturday. Some recent books and films show and suggest that this time is now. Can you stomach it? I mean, seriously. This is a basically published by one of the most historically important newspapers in the country. And what they want us to do is looking at maybe cannibalism has a time and a place and eventually might end up in uh, as part of our own laws, that it would be okay. And that's even the bones and all. Um, it sounds right. It does sound right for the way they have been. But to bring in cannibalism, and the media is now starting to back them up on this. Uh, the Times isn't the only newspaper printing these strange, macabre stories. Uh, but when they did, it's to me, it's better suited for Halloween and not just, hey, let's talk about cannibalism. And then they are pitching the idea, and this is according to the New York Post, not to be outdone with gross out steaks. The Wall Street Journal weighed in with its own piece last week about the fun you'll have building your very own coffin. These people are sick. I swear they're sick. Mary, tell me, what would make people want to be cannibals? This is starting even to sound like the zombies want to eat people and eat brains. How could a newspaper that is very, very well known for decades decide that cannibalism is okay? Yikes. Yeah, let them. Well, I don't know if we should let them eat first. William, I keep talking these Solent Green trucks. Now I'm really starting to wonder if I was right all along and they're going to make these little chips out of us. To me, are they, you got to kind of wonder with these, um, those elites that are in power. Is it their idea or is it just the media's idea? And it doesn't say, but they say quite a few Congress and senators willing to look at this cannibalism thing. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. All right. The recession. You listening to these guys the last few days about the recession? What about Biden and his administration? Hey, it's all okay. It's probably not even a recession. Um, it is a recession. We're in the recession. We could be in a depression by the end of the year. And they're like, hey, look at we're all doing well. Look at the unemployment rates. Look at, hey, gas is down at like what, 20 cents? What happens when they're done with it? It's just going to shoot right back up. You can't tell people there's no inflation and there's no recession coming or twist it to make it sound like you're the good guy. The problem is these people can't accept what they've done. Um, the only thing they could do is lie their way out. They're not going to admit they were wrong. Even Yellen is stepped forward and said, well, maybe we shouldn't have done it this way. Well, Now she's coming out saying, hey, calm down, everybody. It's not that bad. Inflation hasn't hurt anybody yet. But it has, folks. It has. I'm going to say inflation and recession is up to the person that's spending. It's your check, it's your money. You know what your bills are, you know what you were able to do 2 years ago. And you know what? Was it Ronald Reagan that said, is it, what is it? Is today the same as it was 4 years ago? Well, hell no, it's not. We were looking at a boom in this country. We were looking at a boom where the middle class and small business owners could actually look at maybe seeing their first million. And of course, you know, they want to do away with the millionaires and zillionaires as they become millionaires, zillionaires, trillionaires. Um, it's all so they can keep the money in there to take us down. And the biggest threat is our farmers, our truck drivers, our small business owners, because they were rising very quickly with their income. And that's what capitalism is all about. Old capitalism wasn't so great, folks, but what we've seen over the last 10 years with capitalism has been great for all of us. It gave the little guy the chance to be able to own their own business. I mean, how great would it be if you were had the money in a few years to have your own business? I think it would have made a lot of us a lot of money. And this is what the Biden administration doesn't want. And I say we're seeing history in the making as socialism is crumbling. Their socialism isn't making it too far. And like I said last week, old Klaus Schwab, he's got his head between his knees and he's hyperventilating right now. He cannot figure out what to do next, except for say, well, maybe China could step in and help people. Well, that's what China's doing. And that's not what we were told. We were told they were going to take us to the bottom and we were going to shoot back up to the top. Well, now we're hearing, well, we don't have a plan. Let's let China buy everybody out. No, this needs to stop. And as we're on the cusp of it being very scary, just hang on to your faith, folks. Um, it's close. This year has went by so quick, and November is just around the corner. And I truly believe, like I told David Hodges and on his show, that if they're going to uprise in November when they feel that they got cheated. And they have enough of these organizations, these foundations that have got protesters at their beck and call. I expect to see a real insurrection. Um, I hope I'm wrong. I'm really hoping I'm wrong, but I have a feeling we're going to see a real insurrection come November when they don't get their way. And they think that it's just going to be an easy win for them, but it's not. Um, I think even along the border is flipping. More and more, I'm seeing the Democrats along the borders where these illegals are getting through saying they're done. They're going to switch parties or they're just going to get out of politics. So, um, and not only that, but they've got this dark money groups, and I'm talking George Soros. We know he's been putting money into our justice system. He's been putting money into anything and everything to take our country down. Well, when is it going to be time to take George Soros down? He has done nothing for our country but dark money. And now we're finding that he is now funding the left to packing the courts. Not only the Supreme Court, but all of the courts. And they want to do this within the next 2 years, to where even in 2024, if we get the right people in office, it's going to take them a while to weed through the mess that Soros has put in place to keep us from getting justice. And you see the thing about the guns, they want to take these guns away, is we're seeing there was a girl at the airport with a gun. We had these two teenagers that decided they didn't want to pay to ride the subway train. and they started attacking police officers, and they had knives. We're seeing it more and more of this gun battles going on our streets, and then they let them go. The 16-year-old that had a gun, oh, let go, let go. Back out on the street to commit more crimes. And this is what we're seeing more and more. And Eric Adams, he can do his little squawky talk and saying he really cares. But until we do something about the crime rate and we stop George Soros from letting these people go back out on the streets to commit the crime, we're going to have a tough time. And they're in deep, folks. They have got people so deep into our court and our justice system from Washington, D.C., all the way down to our local cities. So be prepared. You got to, stand with your fists up and be ready to fight the battle with the rest of us. So um, let's see. I don't have much left. Um, Um, the green disaster. Well, they have turned out some buses now that are these electric vehicles. Well, just like the cars are having issues. Buses are bigger, more batteries to heat up, get hot, and catch fire. So they found out um, basically a Connecticut electric bus bursted into flames with passengers on board. And then we're seeing more and more of this. When are they going to do the recall on these things? No, they're not. They're going to go after Elon Musk and tell him what he's doing is wrong. Uh, but no recalls on the other vehicles. Um, More and more we're starting to hear about what is going on with these batteries, and the more we're hearing that they are catching fire. They overheat and they catch fire. Well, how far can you drive before your battery overheats? They say not very far. It might just be a trip to the grocery store and back, and then your battery's heated up with the heat of the day, and it'll torch. um, so I'm not getting none of them EV cars until they start recalling these that are burning up. So many garage fires, house fires, um, people's other cars that are parked close to these cars are catching fire. I'm going to say it's a pandemic of the EV cars. We need to do something about these batteries. All right. The World Health Organization appoints a veteran UK Communist Party member to advise them now. So now we put them in charge, and now they're putting communist advisors in place to make decisions on what's going to be a pandemic and what's not, and if we have to be locked down or not. Uh, a Communist Party member would definitely be like what they have been experiencing in China, and they will lock us down. They will lock us up. They will lock us down. Um, um, and this, let me see if I can get a name for this lady. Um, let's see. Professor Susan Michie. She's a director of Center for Behavioral Changes at University College in London. She'll be the technical advisor on behavioral insights and sciences for health. Um, Michie was basically brought to public attention in 2021 when she was talking about masks and social distancing, that it would be better long term than the short term that we did. And if another pandemic happens to pop up, that she would be all for long term and going with what China does with its people to be able to have control over the next disease that happens to come up. So as you could see, she's definitely a communist sympathizer. But this is someone that's from London. So, uh, boy, I tell you, folks, they're putting these people in place. Spanish police um, happened to rescue a minor they found out was being lured to Belgium by Islamic extremists. They were wanting kids from the ages of 5 to 9 years old, and they were trying to use a go between to gather up some of these children that would have been sent through Belgium to these Islamic extremists. But the Spanish police rescued them and actually were able to keep them from going. But now they have to open up an investigation into, if they've done it this time, how many times before have they done this? So the individuals of this Islamic extremist group will now be looked into and investigated by the Spanish police, but not only that, but by Belgium. Uh, Also, Mexico is going to look into it, and they are advising in between over there in Europe, all the way to Belgium to um, Mexico. They're all encouraging the United States that they need to look into this, since we have quite a few Islamic extremists in our country that would be more than happy to grab these kids up and then ship them on over to where they needed to go or where they were planning to go. Um, um, CNN really surprised me yesterday. They're claiming that Huawei um, is the threat to the United States and its nuclear is very, very real. And this coming from CNN is kind of like a shocker. Uh, and what they mean is this whole Nancy Pelosi thing. Um, they're claiming that if we were told by the Chinese and their prime ministers and their foreign secretary that Nancy Pelosi should not be going there, she should not be going there. When they start talking nuclear threats, this is when Nancy Pelosi herself would step back and say maybe it's not a good idea. But now we're starting to see that the mainstream is starting to look at this nuclear threat, and is it worth sending Pelosi over there with a threat? Is it just flexing muscles, or are they serious? They don't want Pelosi over there. And what is going on with Pelosi, with China, that they've got these tensions? Because she has been doing, her and her husband been doing business with China for over a decade. And now all of a sudden, just because she wants to go to Taiwan, um, there's this nuclear threat. And I said earlier, she just don't need to go. Why not just schedule it for another time when everything isn't so heated up? Um, the whistleblowers are coming forward, FBI whistleblowers that are planning to resign by the end of the year if things don't change. And what they're saying is there are certain DOJ members and FBI that are um, hiding evidence of Hunter Biden. Let me get a drink here. And they have been covering up for him for quite a few years. And not only him, but Joe Biden's brother and Jill Biden, and also Joe Biden. They're downplaying negative reports about Hunter Biden and his crack use, or the money that he spent on prostitutes, or even question him on the money that he has been working with China to be able to get for him and his family. So, um, the whistleblowers have come forward, and I've heard from my girls in the Capitol, there's about 8 of them. According to the reports, there's only 2 or 3, but I'm hearing 8. And some are in high positions at the FBI and the Department of Justice. So this could be a good thing. Maybe since it's getting closer to November, that they're starting to see this could be a big change. And maybe they want to jump in and say, you know what, we're going to help the Republican Party, and we're going to push forward uh, of not hiding this stuff about the Biden family until it can be fully investigated. Um, um, if you didn't know about the Oak Fire in California, around Yosemite, It's grown to 18,000 acres. It's the state's largest wildfire in years. They're saying it's even bigger than what they've seen in Paradise or even the Gold Valley fires. And so they're hoping to be able to get a handle on it with upcoming rains. And they said if that, not that, then they're going to be bringing in more firefighters to be able to try to put this fire out before it spreads to too many more cities. Um, Former congressmen, among 9, are charged with insider trading. This is what Nancy Pelosi has been doing. Um, but there's certain people that can get away with it, and there's others that can't. And former congressmen, among others, are charged with insider trading where they went too far. I say, when you look at Pelosi and her husband, and they're doing it, their friends are doing it, that are in Congress and Senate, why not? I think they just said, why not? And they went ahead and did it. And so these 9 are charged with insider trading. But they're also saying that once they have been charged and they get a chance to talk with the lawyers and the prosecutors, or those that are charging them, that they are willing to turn over quite a few others on the Democrat side that have been doing uh, insider trading to the 100th degree, and they want them to go down too. Um, Now, if you haven't heard, John Bonet, a crime scene, DNA could be ID'd in hours. The cold case researcher says the family pushes for answers. The DNA testing did come back to solve the 1996 murder of Jean Benet. And they're hoping by the end of today or by the end of this week. The family has tweeted they got the DNA Monday. They know who it is, and they said, "Let's get to work. Let's go get these guys." This was done by Parabon Nano Labs. It's a Virginia-based firm. Um, they have a really good track record of using um, innovative genetic genealogy research techniques to crack old cold case murders. And they have pretty much, they say, cracked the DNA case for John Bonet. So hopefully by the end of this week, we might hear who it is and who's responsible. That many have come forward, many have been looked at and questioned, but they've never really said that they have charged anybody on this case. Um, they say they have, the Boulder police say that they have declined to conduct DNA analysis on some evidence um, that remains untested. There is now a petition that has got more than 10,000 signatures for the county to go ahead and process every bit of evidence they have for DNA testing. So good. We could see somebody charged. Um, so whether it's a family member, a friend, a neighbor, or a stranger, we might find out what happened to John Benet Ramsey, which it needs to be solved. This has gone on too long. Um, the Fed prepares another mega-sized rate hike, um, and it could hurt. I'm going to say, when I've talked with the economists on this, it's going to hurt people, those wanting to buy or sell houses. Um, this rate hike, it's going to probably be one of the biggest, according to the Feds. It's a mega-sized rate hike. Um, and it's risking putting us into a deeper economic recession. I think this is what's going to push us to the recession, to close to the depression. And that's why I said, don't listen to the media. Listen to what your bank account says, folks. If your bank account screams recession, depression, inflation, then it's happening. Don't let no bozo on channel 7 with NBC or something try to convince you that everything's okay or it's going to be okay. Because they want to say, oh, it's not so bad. It'll get better what we're doing, and it's only going to get better from here. They're a bunch of bozos. Please don't listen to them. The big one, we legalized the marijuana and we got the distribution centers and the drug czars in charge of it. Well, now guess what? They want to push legalizing psychedelic mushrooms is the next. Uh, these yuppies, I call them yuppies, hippies or whatever, and this new generation that seem to like the mushrooms are now pushing that the psychedelic mushrooms become legal also. Now, I'm surprised they didn't go to heroin um, or crack or one of these other drugs. No, it's mushrooms. So this could be the gateway with the drug and the DEA of maybe possibly looking at psychedelic mushrooms. Huh. Um, um, but with all of this that's been going on in this world, the biggest question we have is what is going on with the Democrats? Do they really care what they're doing to us? I don't think they do, folks. I don't think um, that the Democrats care of what their voters think. Because if you look at 2 years ago, when I was even trying to call them, they didn't want to hear from the voters. They were doing it on what they wanted or what Nancy Pelosi um, uh, talked them into or threatened them to do. And so, as we are looking at inflation, depression, um, and depression meaning uh, your mindset, the prices, the cost of living. What about school supplies? Um, Everything that's coming out right now that we are going to have to eat the cost of. They don't care. Um, it, was this a plan? Yes, it was a plan. But what's at the end of this plan? There is no rainbows. There aren't no um, leprechauns that's going to be granting the 3 wishes because we are not seeing it in third world countries. Um, and why don't they care? Are they that heartless? Aren't they watching the people around them suffer? Friends and family members. Now look at Joe Biden, and he said one of his friends was complaining about the cost of beef. Uh, that must have been somebody that was very close, felt brave enough to say, "Hey, this is getting to be a little extreme, a little bit too much." Um, and did he care? No, because the prices are still going up. So does he still have that friend? Probably not. And as gas prices are going up, 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 they are now going to get their own little fuel depots to where they can put gas into their own cars, their own planes. Uh, they're going to be able to have the gas, but we aren't. And they're doing this on purpose. This isn't nothing by accident. These guys are smart. These aren't a bunch of dummies. These are people that went through Harvard and Yale. And remember, I talked secret societies last night. These are very smart politicians. You can't tell me these are a bunch of dummies. They have been a part of the system for 30 plus years for some of them. They're not stupid. But when you go back and you look at the Democrats and what they've actually passed individually, not much has been passed with the Democrat parties for their own state. That's why I want to say that I don't think they care about their voters. And when you do call and you say, what about the voters? Why are they making the decisions on their own and with their opinions and their own ideas? And they say, well, they take into consideration it will help their voters. Okay. So if you're a Democrat out there and you're listening today, think about that. They are raising your gas prices. They're raising your food prices. They're doing away with the farmers in your state because they think this is what you want. And it is not, folks. They're not doing what the voter wants. They're doing this on their own. It's to destroy this country and make us equal to a third world country. And then what? Well, Klaus Schwab doesn't know, and he's the one that put the plan in. It's a Marxist socialist plan. And I'll repeat, like I said earlier, I think we're watching history. I think we are watching the socialist plan crumble before us. And they may not be able to ever use socialism again. After all these countries globally are failing, I don't think they're going to fall for socialism. Uh, will they go to communism? I don't know. I hope not. I hope for our viewers' sake that no. So, um, any questions? Um, yeah, you're right, Linda. She was groomed for a very long time with the modeling, the dances, and um, when I seen that show with the dance girls, with these adults teaching these little girls dancing and modeling, boy, that's scary. There's so many. How many perverts are in that audience? And now, get this, only 12% of crimes that are committed in our country are actually being prosecuted. And the ones slipping through the cracks are these pedophiles and these rapists, uh, home invasions. If you were mugged, you were raped. All of these are only 12% is getting prosecuted. And what's that tell you? That we live in a horrible world of unjust politicians that have crossed the line into criminal activity themselves. That's just how I feel. Um, they'll never be rewarded by the one world order because it's crumbling, Linda, right before them. I think once, there was a list I think that Hannity put out of all the things that people want for their lifestyle to be okay. And none of it was being a socialist. None of it was to do without food and gas. Nobody ever thought socialism would shut down the pipelines or create shortages on the shelves. Uh, and have you noticed they're not blaming Putin for the gas now or any of the shortages? They're just going along with, well, this isn't a recession, nothing to see here. So, uh, anyway, with that, folks, that is it for today. And if you didn't get to see the morning show, go on back and watch. We had the morning weather show. It was a good one this morning. Um, uh, some good ideas about bears, how to stay away from the bears when you're out this summer camping and hiking, riding a bike, or mountain lions, folks. Be very careful when you're in mountain lion area because they go for the chase. A bear won't go for the chase as quick as a mountain lion will. And I know out in California, along the American River, where they put in the bike and the hiking, not hiking, walking trails, they had more lion attacks than ever when it first went in. And it's because that was their property. What I mean is the mountain lions owned that land. They were born, they were raised there, they raised their young, and they were very comfortable. And then all of a sudden, population moves in, and they decided to put in a bike and a walking trail there. And of course, they never thought that these lions would attack. They thought they would move on somewhere else. And I'm going on what Department of Fish and Game told us when I lived out there. So just be very careful when you're going into areas to ride a bike. Um, or even fish, go swimming, camping, any of that. Be very aware of your surroundings as the population has grown and the cities are further and further out into the suburbs or even out into some of the national forests. Uh, we're going to start seeing more of these little critters. It's going to want to come chomp on your leg. Uh, and that's just putting it nicely. So, with that, folks, you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. It's great being back. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the morning weather show, news, and then it'd be me and William tomorrow night. We appreciate our viewers and we thank you for watching. Please please subscribe and share with family and friends. Hit the like, hit the bell. Over there in Facebook land, hit your follow. And we've gained quite a few again over this last week. Even me being sick, we gained quite a few and quite a few views. So share it with your friends, your hairdresser, share it with the person at the laundromat. Tell everybody about us. So with that, we will see you all tomorrow morning. And you guys have a wonderful day, and God bless. Bye-bye, folks.